And it's definitely time for wine and beer picks for Thanksgiving and so much more. We are joined by Rob Statham, and he's a beer consultant, a spirits consultant, wine consultant as well. You are with the drunkengrape.com. How are you, Rob?
I'm great. How are you?
It's good. It's good. It's good to have you here. I'm good. We are going to talk, every time you come on, you give us a bit of a history lesson on some things, which is very cool. Let's talk about Thanksgiving, Canadian Thanksgiving.
Well, it started in 1879. Originally, Thanksgiving started with Henry VIII. Launched it as a festival to celebrate the previous year's bounty and harvest. So we carried over in 1879. Parliament decreed November 6th, originally the date, and it shifted a few years later to the second Monday of October. And the same celebration, of course, to celebrate the bounty of the previous year. And of course, wine and beer is always joyful to go with that bounty, so it ties in nicely.
So is that how wine and beer became part of the festivities? Just it's part of the bounty, as you say?
Well, I think it's always been there. It's always been tied throughout history. It just ties beautifully into food and celebratory events like Thanksgiving.
And I'm glad you explained when Thanksgiving happens, because I think every year people are sort of confused. It's not like Halloween that falls on a certain day or Christmas.
Yeah, exactly.
People are always
it's
wondering,
true.
when's Thanksgiving this year? All right, so you have some wine and beer picks that you'd like to talk about. Which would you like to start with? Wine?
Well, we'll start with wine. This is a fabulous winery. This is Henry of Pelham Winery. It comes from Short Hills Bench, the warmest section of the Niagara Escarpment. And their winery's been around really in the family for 6 generations now. And you're looking at a 300-acre expanse of land. So they have some excellent wines for Thanksgiving. The one here, this is a special edition Fumé Blanc, which is a smoky version of a barrel-aged version of Sauvignon Blanc. And you have a very rich Baco Noir, which is very Zinfandel-like. This is a special edition celebrating the 30th anniversary of the Speck family with its initial launch of what has made them world-renowned and a world-class winery itself. Goes great with Thanksgiving dinner. You got things like really ripe currant, jamminess. There's a sweet spiciness note to it as well. Absolutely fabulous.
Okay, now are these, where would you find?
Well, these are by special order of the winery, but you can find their wines and their array of wines at the LCBO. They've got some fantastic wines there for offer.
Convenient for sure.
Absolutely terrific wine.
All right, do you want to talk about the beer? Or
well, right now we have Flora Hall Brewery here. So Flora Hall Brewery is located in Centertown. It was a converted engineering warehouse that became a brew pub just a couple of years ago. A gentleman by the name of David Logbottom. He's got an excellent brewmaster in the name of Rod that comes up with some of these great stylistic compositions. You got an oatmeal stout, which would be great with your Thanksgiving ice cream and pumpkin pie. So it's got like espresso notes, a little bit of burnt toast. It's got a bit of sweetness and bitterness. It has interesting characteristics, a little bit of soy in there, but it pairs really well with those two things. You have an IPA, mango IPA, nice and rich, full-bodied, fruity, obviously strong in the bitter notes. And you have a sour-style beer, which actually go well with turkey if you're not into white wine. It is aged and bottled in Chardonnay, aged in Chardonnay cask, bottled in Chardonnay bottle, and it's a great substitute for turkey if you're not really into the wine options itself.
And you have to love as well just the way it was capped with the looks like,
wax
a wax seal, and you don't see that very often. Now, what about you actually have a non-alcoholic option?
I do.
On the end.
So we got something that's really cleansing, palate cleansing. It's very refreshing. This is locally sourced water by Stream Water. It's a local company, and what I love about them, like Henry of Pelham, which does everything with sustainability. I mean, they conserve water, they reforest. The water company, there's no plastic. So everything's in bottle or can. And everything's locally sourced from a nearby reserve that contains 72 million liters of fresh spring water. It's incredible.
Super cool. All right. I believe you covered everything here. And now we're thirsty, we're hungry. But let's talk about your business as well. I mean, things are going pretty well.
They are moving along. The event space is picking up. I'm getting booked more and more for specialized events. So you come and do hosted parties, tastings, seminars for corporate and private affairs and gatherings. There's also a videography component that has been developing as well to help brand some of the small to mid-size and larger wineries and breweries.
But you do private sessions where people get together and they taste different wines, different spirits?
Yes.
It's got to be very exciting.
Pair with some food, talk a bit about the history. It's a lot of fun.
And you were founded back in 2015. And you're a sommelier. I mean, you know what you're talking about when it comes to this stuff.
Well, it's one of those things that, you know, you have to carry humbleness with it and humility, but it's constant learning. It's constant learning and growing. You can't get away from it, which actually I love because you're always working to do better.
You're a good man, Rob Statham. Thank you very much for being here today.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure. And thank you. Have a happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.